When do they get the dinosaurs?
Dragons.
Shit!
Hello and welcome to Talk Lit Get Hit, a podcast where we read questionable books recommended to us by social media and talk shit about them.
We're Bridget, Erin and Laura, three friends who haven't mentally progressed since high school, where we bonded over a love of music and books, but mainly Twilight.
Brace yourself for a heady cocktail of somewhat highbrow and incredibly lowbrow ramblings about all the books the internet loves and our journey to figure out why.
Hello. Welcome to the July episode of Talk Lit Get Hit. This month we are taking on a book that the girlies on TikTok swear will fill the ACOTAR-less void in our hearts. We are returning against all odds to a genre we swore we would never revisit and tackling the quote-unquote fiercely romantic and unforgivably addictive novel that is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. Hello, how are you both? It's been so long since we saw one another.
I don't even remember when we last recorded.
I think it was 2 months ago because we did two in one day.
Oh, God.
Actually, the day that we recorded was the day that we were organising our giveaway as well. And that feels so long ago.
Yeah, the giveaway. That was so much fun.
We had our Happy Place giveaway on Instagram.
Yeah.
So if you listen and you don't follow us on the Instagram, get on it because we could do more.
Yeah, and if you've joined us since the giveaway, hello
Welcome.
and thank you. Well, something I have been thinking about lately is how this time last year, the podcast was not even a twinkle in our eyes. We weren't even, I think we didn't even have concrete plans to make an episode or anything. We'd done 8 hours of recording and then felt like super defeated about it because we didn't know where to begin. So I'm so excited to be here today.
Oh, that's so nice.
Is this our 12th episode?
It's our 12th.
That's very exciting.
Wowie.
Well, what's been going on in reading land? Have you read anything good?
Fucking nothing. As evidenced by the fact that I was literally finishing this book 5 minutes ago. I've got nothing to say on that front.
I have made note of two of the books that I've read lately that I think were the best. The first one was The Bandit Queens by Parini Shroff. It's about this woman who lives in an Indian village and her husband has gone missing and the village is convinced that she killed him. So she sort of leans into that and becomes like a bit of an eccentric businesswoman, but then the other women in the village start to come to her and want help to kill their husbands.
Cool.
As well. So I really liked that. It was funnier than I thought it would be. I really liked it. It was good. And the other one was Notes on an Execution by Danya Kakafka. It was about a man who had killed, it was about his last 24 hours before he was executed. And it also told the story of a few of the women in his lives. That was really good too.
They both sound good. Also, two books I've never heard of. You do always have really good recommendations that are off the beaten track. I had a couple of pretty good books throughout the month. I read Free Food for Millionaires by Min-Jin Lee, and that was excellent because I really, really, really liked Pachinko, and the synopsis of this book didn't really intrigue me. But I don't know, for some reason I just started listening to the audiobook and it was fantastic. Like, I guess it's one of those books that I'm always drawn to where it spans like 30 odd years of characters' lives. Plenty happens, but there's no one big event. But it's just so rich and so beautifully written that I just get so sucked into it. And I also read Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. I feel like I've been reading that for at least 3 months. Yeah. And I did really like it. I haven't written a review of it yet, and I think I'm struggling to completely understand how I feel about it. I think I did enjoy it, and it gave me the same sort of satisfaction that books like Pachinko or A Little Life give me, where I become obsessed and like drawn into these characters' lives, and then they're quite heart-wrenching. But at the same time, because it took me so long to read, I feel like I wasn't really immersed in it. I would like to read it again because I'm trying to figure out if my lack of immersion was because I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I did, or I was just not in a reading mood. One thing I just remembered is that Brown and I have been watching Exo Kitty.
Yes.
And I didn't expect him to like it as much as he did. And last night when I was trying desperately to finish Fourth Wing, he kept coming in to say, like, one other thing that was so good about Exo Kitty.
Me. Tell him to just message me. I will love this conversation.
I was very encouraging of the conversation. I enjoyed it so much more than I thought I would. But it was so funny just the way he was like, they're all such good characters and none of them are bad people, you know? And he was like really, really invested in it.
He's so right, and he should say it.
It was really cringe, but really good.
Cringe in a good way,
yes.
I think. Or like true to the age of the characters and stuff.
He had a permanent like shoulders up grimace, like his head in his hand, kind of just stress position.
Like a Renaissance painting.
Last night we tried this new Chinese takeaway place that we had never have been to. It was really good.
Food recommendations with Laura and Brownie.
Start a new Insta.
But yeah, we were so excited because we watched the final episode of Exo Kitty and had this new Chinese takeaway that ticked all the boxes. And we were like, oh, what a good night. This is what I always dreamed of growing up.
And then you had to finish it by reading Fourth Wing.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's a good segue into what our initial thoughts, expectations, hopes, and dreams were about this book.
I expected twists. I think everything I saw suggested that you couldn't predict how it was going to end, which I would agree with. Most of the time when I thought I knew what was coming, it was different. Also, it's huge, and I am too slow of a reader to read books this big. And I think when we decided we were reading it, we didn't know it was part of a 5-book series.
5? I thought it was 4.
No, it's 5. It's 5 books, and I fear we have bitten off more than we can chew.
And you know what? I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but yesterday the book was released for pre-order. It comes out, the sequel, which is called Iron Flame, on the 7th of November. This book was released on the 2nd of May.
Oh, shit.
So it's already available for pre-order.
Oh, my God.
Christ.
I don't think I had any other initial thoughts. It was just a big bitch, and I was not mentally prepared. What about you guys?
I was a little bit excited and a little bit trepidatious. Is that the word?
Ooh,
I don't know.
Flex. Okay.
On theme.
I always maintain that I'm not a fantasy reader, and I'm also not that into dragons. Or dinosaurs. I was trying to hype myself up for it by just thinking, you love Game of Thrones, you really enjoyed A Song of Ice and Fire, blah, 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 blah. But then I would always come back to the point that the fantasy elements or the dragons in Game of Thrones is not what I like about Game of Thrones anyway. So it didn't really do much to get me excited.
Okay. I was not really excited. I'd seen it.
Why did we pick this book?
Well, we love to talk shit, I guess. That was my reasoning. And I'd seen it on my For You page on TikTok a lot and purposely not really clicked on anything or engaged with anything around it because I think quite early on, like about the time I was starting to see it, maybe one of you said, maybe we could read it. And so I thought, well, I'll go in blind. And so I guess I had low hopes because I was seeing lots of comparisons to ACOTAR. And although I would ultimately say I enjoyed ACOTAR, I didn't really think it was good at the same time. So I was really hoping it would be good. I was wanting it to feel kind of like a Hunger Games / Aragon, Hole in My Heart. I don't know if either of you have read those books, but I really liked them. I'm always looking for a fantasy book to enjoy and so rarely finding it. But I didn't have high hopes. I don't know who I am.
Moral of the story is none of us wanted to read it.
I agree with seeing it all over TikTok. I saw it everywhere. And one thing that I have noticed is I haven't seen much negative content about it. I had a look on Goodreads and it is currently rated 4.69 with 127,000 ratings already. So this was released in May. It's currently 14th on the list of the highest rated books on Goodreads that has more than 10,000 ratings. The first is Words of Radiance by Brendan Sanderson. That book has 4.76 with nearly 306,000 ratings. So the books that are like on the list, along with this one, is the seventh Harry Potter, the last Lord of the Rings book, the third book from A Song of Ice and Fire. But I want to see if you can guess which book is number 7. It is a book we have done on the podcast and it is rated 4.63.
Is it Before the Coffee Gets Cold?
No.
Surely not The Love Hypothesis.
No.
Icebreaker?
No.
A Court of Silver Flames.
No. It's Mist and Fury, the second one.
Oh, that is the best one, though.
I agree.
Yeah.
But the 7th highest rated book on Goodreads.
The girlies are powerful.
Incredible.
You've really prepared for this episode.
I have another fact, actually.
I love it.
So special edition copies of the Ark are currently for sale. I don't know if they're selling for nearly $5,000.
What the shit?
So they have
Why?
the sprayed edges and some, I think there's like a writer's quadrant special edition ones.
Wow.
But they're for $5,000.
That's so
Jeez.
crazy. And actually, something I did want to talk about is we did see a lot of hype about it, but because it's so new, and I don't know if this is the author's debut novel or what, but I've never heard of them before.
That's what we were saying.
How did this book get so much hype?
She's written 20 books.
Holy
I
shit.
thought it was a debut as well.
Yeah.
We just had this conversation while you were furiously reading with your noise-cancelling headphones.
Over 20 novels.
I don't have any other initial thoughts to tell you, but I do want to tell you how I feel now. Seamless.
Okay.
I would love to hear how you feel now.
Literally the premise of the podcast. The reason we are gathered here today.
As always, this episode will contain spoilers and crude language, so please proceed with caution. Please also note the content warnings as listed by the author in the book, graphic displays of violence and sexual content.
Welcome to the brutal and elite world of Basquiat War College, where everyone has an agenda and every night could be your last.
20-year-old Violet Sorringale was supposed to enter the scribe quadrant, living a quiet life among books and history.
Now the commanding general, also known as her tough as Talon's mother, has ordered Violet to join the hundreds of candidates striving to become the elite of Navarre, dragon riders.
But when you're smaller than everyone else and your body is brittle, death is only a heartbeat away, because dragons don't bond to fragile humans. They incinerate them.
With fewer dragons willing to bond than cadets, most would kill Violet to better their own chances of success.
The rest would kill her just for being her mother's daughter, like Xaden Ryerson, the most powerful and ruthless wing leader in the Riders Quadrant.
She'll need every edge her wits can give her just to see the next sunrise.
Yet, with every day that passes, the war outside grows more deadly, the kingdom's protective wards are failing, and the death toll continues to rise.
Alliances will be forged, lives will be lost, traitors will become allies, or even lovers. But sleep with one eye open, because once you enter, there are only 2 ways out: graduate or die. Well, I guess following on from that sizzling synopsis
Ooh.
and our titillating... I actually immediately regret saying that, so I'll start again.
No, leave it in.
Tits ahoy. What did you end up thinking?
It took me a little while to get into. I would say once I got past the bit where they had to climb the big wall, the Crash
playground.
Bandicoot level, once they passed that level, I was into it. But then, I don't know what happened. I just lost interest. And I can't pinpoint the point, but I think it might have been when they were at the anniversary of the end of the rebellion or whatever. But I think also when they got together, didn't care anymore.
I have a few theories on that, so I can't wait to start talking about it. I feel like I had a similar reading experience. I think both of you were saying around like 250 pages in, shit really starts to pick up. The first maybe third of the book, I was saying, this is not a good book, this is not a good book. And I kept going to report to Brown like what was happening and all the times I'd rolled my eyes. And then suddenly I was like, and then she gets a dragon and she's suddenly like so cool and the bad guy's all like, and she's like, and he was kind of just tolerating it. But
I was doing the same thing. I was sitting on the couch going, Brian, this is such a good book. The first night I was reading it, or maybe the second night, and then the third night
it flatlines.
I was silent.
Yeah.
Oh.
Or was I silent?
Silence. Yeah, I agree. I actually think the like quadrant trial is where I started to get interested. Or maybe even a bit before that. When she started poisoning people, I thought that was pretty cool. When she started like figuring out how to be strong without being physically strong, I thought that was cool because she's kind of stopped talking about it as well. But yeah, I also don't know what made me lose interest in the end. I really struggled through the last 100 pages. It was long. It was so long-winded. And most of the action, or like most of what propels the story, is the dialogue. But there's so much description between the dialogue.
I also think what I was promised, what I was sold, was people stabbing each other in the back. You can't trust anybody. Don't make friends. Everybody's out to get you. And there were moments like that and there were people like that. But pretty quickly it became so earnest and they all just banded together and protecting each other, which obviously, you know, good on you for being good people, I guess. But that's not what the book is. It's not what it says on the back. It's not what she was prepared for when she was going in to the war college. She was told, don't trust anybody, don't help anybody. They're all out to get you. There weren't many that were out to get her. They did try to kill her, but most of them were her friends. And everything went their way all the time.
As I said before, everyone says, oh, there's a big twist at the end. So I was waiting for someone to be betraying her. I was waiting for Rhiannon to come in.
Me too, yeah.
And be like dating Dane or whatever. And they're like the bad bitch power couple of the enemy or whatever.
And I think that Dane's storyline, it was too obvious.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because he was touching her all the time.
I know.
Like one of the first things he tells her is like, oh, yeah, I can read memories by touching people. And she's like, sick.
I have a couple of points on what you were saying, but most of all is how fucking dense Violet can be, because you're right, every interaction between them, it's like, he gripped my head like a melon. I care about you, Violet. Like, what he told you what he could do. And then she has that whole, like, he wouldn't do it without my consent. But then every single scene with him is like, oh, he follows the rules a lot.
You're so right. Like, Violet is smart. And I actually like Violet for the most part.
Me too.
For one, I like that she's not a teenager. 20's not that far off, but I like that she's a bit older. I think she is smart, and I think she is obviously learning how to be an adult at the same time as learning all of this like physical stuff. And she's obviously been so sheltered that she does trust people quite easily. In her defense, she was told to only trust Dane, and like they've been friends forever. It would be hard to start questioning his motives, but I think it's really odd she didn't think about it earlier, or that Xaden didn't say anything. Like, surely he picked up on it. He obviously knew.
That's so true. I think this book does suffer from something we find in so many of the books we read, where it has the right elements, but they're not given the attention they deserve, or like the right pacing. And I think that was something I found with the end of the book, was that so many points of tension wrapped up or came to head, and then a couple of new ones were introduced. And I guess we now know it's a 5-book series, but a book still has to be whole and satisfying on its own. And I think this just didn't do a good job of it overall. In terms of keeping that tension throughout, it was a little underwhelming.
Yeah, I kept waiting for like an actual battle or something. Like I was waiting for war to happen and it not be the war games. Like I wanted real shit that forced everybody to participate and not just like banish these people down and test them. I don't know, the whole motives behind that final battle scene is really weird. It wasn't really clear enough.
I agree. I wasn't sure if I was just bored by that point and just wanted to have it over and done with, or if it was just unclear.
It was so much info dumping. Just
Yeah, heaps.
Just back to Violet, I did like her. Obviously, she's a tiny little girl who...
Oh, God, the tiny girl, big
weak.
guy again.
But... she's not letting that get in her way.
No,
and
I
she's
love
not
it.
the one bringing it up all the time.
Yeah.
It's everyone else. And she's working hard to prove them wrong, and she's aware of her limitations and she's trying to think of ways to get around it. And I liked her. I didn't really feel annoyed by her at all, which is a nice change.
very nice change. One of my favorite moments from her was, I think, after she bonds with her dragons. Dane is basically telling her to bail again, pull out, it's too dangerous. And she says something to the effect of, the only thing holding me back is you. Like, I believe in myself, you don't. I'm done with this relationship we have.
Once she stopped saying so much about how weak she was, and once they stopped talking about all the bones breaking and shit, I was on board. I was just sick of hearing about tendons ripping and shoulders popping.
It was
I don't give a fuck.
never addressed as well. Like, is she chronically ill? What's...
The mother did say that when she was pregnant with Violet, there was a fever that nearly killed her mother. And that took all of her strength or whatever. But if she can become this strong in 6 months to start with and then progressively stronger, why have they not been doing that the whole time?
That's what I was thinking.
I know that she's been training to be a scribe, but even if when she was a scribe, she was still having bones mended and stuff.
They somehow knew exactly what to do to help her get stronger.
And I guess on that as well, I was pretty confused. Maybe this is something I missed as well as the fever, but
Yeah, I didn't know about the fever.
how did she get so good with the daggers? Who was training her? Because she just was automatically really good at using those daggers.
Because she already found out like 6 months before the entries or whatever opened for the Riders Quadrant that her mum was going to send her there. So she had 6 months.
I think I
of,
thought it
like,
was 6 weeks. That makes way more sense.
Yeah, she had like a really short intensive period, and I think they figured that that's like a long distance weapon that she could handle.
I liked that they played to her strengths.
I think she had a really good character arc. Even after she woke up in the end, she wasn't immediately like, oh, Zayden, it's fine. You've done nothing wrong. Like, she's actually quite a strong character, and she found her feet really fast. She was consistent in terms of like her morals and stuff. I thought she was great.
I still had a lot of questions about her backstory and some questions like around her dynamic with her mom. It just wasn't as fleshed out as I wanted it to be.
I think a lot of the fleshing out was in the like setting itself and like the dragons rather than the people themselves. Like that whole scene where they talk about walking past the dragons. So much detail about the dragons, the club tails, the sword tails. I don't give a fuck. I can't see their tails.
Another time where that happened, but I thought it was a really, really good way to just info dump all of that information was when she was crossing the parapet. She starts reciting facts about the history of their kingdom. And I thought that was such a great way to introduce facts without it seeming overwhelming. And
I like that, especially given her background as like training to be a scribe, and that's her comfort place. And even when she has to find something to ground her later, it's that same kind of content.
Also, I would say this is probably one of the only books I've read where having those little sections of text from other books or letters or fun facts about the world at the front of each chapter didn't annoy me, and I actually liked reading them.
Yeah, me too. I like the hints that they gave to the reader. I wish Violet was also getting those hints at the same time as us, because I feel like because of those, I was able to figure out how it was going to end, but she was still completely oblivious.
So the first time she went to the archive, she asked the girl if she could get a copy of the Book of Fables or Folklore or whatever it was, and it wasn't there. And she was like, I wonder why it's not there. Blah, 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 blah. But I was also wondering around that time, because she has been trained to be a scribe just records what they're told to record. And I could be wrong, but I don't know if much of their job is analysis or theorizing about things. I thought it was just recording, like literally scribing.
Yeah.
I think so.
She hasn't used her critical thinking skills.
Well, I don't think they've been trained to.
Yeah.
Because she has grown up in like this government family, really, and her dad has kind of pushed some propaganda on her as much as he could, and then so has the mum. So she's never actually been taught to question anything
Exactly.
that she knows. So it does kind of make sense, but
It is frustrating.
It's frustrating. I wish she did more investigating after they didn't tell them about that incident
Yeah.
that she and Liam saw. I wish she started digging then.
I
Weird
agree.
She didn't question more.
I think we've had this discussion before when we were talking about Akatar. We were talking about how fantasy borrows from other fantasy books and recycles the same plots. So I haven't read too many fantasy series or books, but the things I noticed, Harry Potter, because they were the schoolhouses, you get points in your house in the quadrant. But then there's also A Song of Ice and Fire with the wards protect the realm. The Night King was Sage. He creates the White Walkers, which is the Venom. And they can only be killed with a special blade, which is dragon glass. And Blue Fire, they die immediately when their creator dies. It's literally the plot of Game of Thrones.
Oh, okay.
Hunger Games,
I thought there were a lot of
yes, reasons.
similarities there.
Divergent as well, like with Triss and whatever that guy's name is. And also Triss was weak. And then obviously Akatar with the love triangle with the first guy who seems to be really nice and then turns out to be a
Yes.
big dickhead. So just taking little bits from everywhere, which I guess is fantasy, but
Well, that's human nature.
and but at some point I think there has to be something a bit new.
It's all new to me, though.
Yeah, brand new to me. I definitely got the Hunger Games similarities and the Akatar ones when they revealed that Zayden's power was controlling shadows. I was like,
Azrael.
well, I thought he did it in a cool way, but it was like, oh, I've seen this before.
And I actually liked it more in this book because we knew a bit more about it.
Dare I draw another Twilight comparison as well? Because
Take a shot.
when Dane and Xaden were arguing over whether she should suppress or use her lightning powers or not, I was like, this is so Jacob and Edward, where Edward's always like, I just want to keep you safe. And then Jacob's like, you gotta let her fly. She's a peacock. And I was just thinking, I mean, that's a dynamic that happens over and over again. I mean, it happened in Akatar with Tamlin and Rhys, although I guess
In a different way.
Tamlin's motives weren't really that sincere. But Twilight it is.
Once again, rears
Twilight
its
is the
beautiful head.
blueprint.
Oh my God, you're beautiful.
I quite liked Xaden, and I liked that his focus anytime he was squaring up to Dane was like, you're holding Violet back by being so protective. And even when he was criticizing, I think, Rhiannon's training and stuff, he was like, everyone is doing you a disservice by being so gentle. I think his motives were strong, and it wasn't that his motives were because he loved her. Was because he wanted to see her survive. Like, I think he is by nature a good person who doesn't want to see all these people die. And if he can help them and they want to be helped, he'll do it.
Another thing I did like about Xaden was that even though they were linked through the mating bond or whatever it was called, he never really tried to take ownership of her as well. He was never controlling. She always had her own agency, even though they were tied in such an intimate way. Like their lives were literally linked together, and he was still letting her call the shots. So that was something that really endeared him to me, because I think you wouldn't see that in a lot of the other books we've read.
I was a big fan of his banter. I thought he was a funny character. One of my favorite bits from him is when Dane is flipping out. They're meeting Violet's sister when they've gone on that excursion. And Violet's sister is like, well, how many of you have been called out? And Xaden says he has. And Dane's like, well, no, that's not true. They're not allowed to do that. And the line is, Xaden presses his lips in a tight line and nods, giving Dane a sarcastic thumbs up.
Yeah, I thought that was so funny.
Yes.
I loved it. I think he's a funny character.
Yeah, I liked Xaden.
I liked that too, and I really liked his restraint, because I think it would have been so easy to make him like a flies off the handle, like, I'll kill you for touching her
Real
character.
macho,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he did have so many opportunities to do that. Like, when they were going to get their dragons and it was 3v1 for Violet, and he has that moment where he steps in, but then the dragon rocks up to fight off Jack and Oren.
Great moment, I thought.
Yeah.
I really liked it.
I think when I was reading that, I was like, oh, this is the turning point. Like, this is
Yes.
what Bridget and Aaron were talking about. I was like, fuck yes. And then, like, again, when he comes to her room and saves her from being slaughtered. And there were just so many moments, like, where Dane was being a dick to her. And I was thinking, oh, this is the moment where he pops off at Dane. But he was really quite a quiet, restrained character overall.
He let her come to her own conclusions about Dane.
Something I also really liked, after Violet kills, I can't even remember who it is, but she kills someone and he comes to her room and she doesn't want him there or whatever. And he basically says, like, you can be soft with me right now in this room, not out there, but right here we can be soft. And I thought that was really nice and really reflective of obviously what he's had to do for himself this whole time.
I really wasn't expecting that moment with his character. I really liked that scene too.
Yeah, I thought it was really nice. And obviously what he has done for his people as well. He's given them the leniency they needed when they weren't being watched by everybody.
I will say, when she does finally kill Jack, thank God, and then it's like, oh my God, I killed him. I absolutely understand why she's thinking that, but I feel like every time I read a book where the character that's tried so hard to be good and non-violent finally has to kill someone and then spends the next, like, remainder of the book freaking out about it, I'm like, oh, fucking grow up. Just grow up. You had to kill them. Get on with it. Oh my God.
Like me with the third fairy.
Redacted.
I completely agree. It's just,
But
you know, war college. This is what's going to happen.
I think she dwelled on it for a good amount of time.
Agreed.
Yeah.
She did get over it pretty quick.
Speaking of Jack and Game of Thrones, I did think that that little motherfucker was so Joffrey coded. I thought it was Joffrey through and through.
I immediately thought Cato from Hunger Games.
Because, like, what were his motives? He was just one violent little rat.
And I also think that is a big plot hole, because I don't know why a dragon would choose to bond with him.
Yes.
Like, obviously powerful, but he does he let his emotions control his behavior, and he wasn't honorable. Like, they kept saying that the dragons choose people that are honorable and they know that their intentions are, you know, sincere or whatever.
That made me question if the dragons all have the same morals. It made me think that there are like traitors in the dragons.
That's interesting.
Because obviously they're not all applying the same criteria to the people. Even like the quote unquote traitors had dragons. So they're all assessing on their different merits. I think there are bad dragons.
That's very interesting.
I
And
hadn't
also,
even considered that.
that's very true, because I think the humans like to think they control the dragons, and the dragons align with the humans' morals. That is, you're spot on.
Yeah. The humans are forced to align with the dragons' morals.
Yeah.
And there is nothing governing that the dragons are all going to agree. They don't like that they have to defer to Taryn?
Tarn? I was thinking Tarn, but I don't know.
Violet's dragon.
Yeah, Violet's
Tea Daddy.
Tea Daddy.
the big daddy.
Before we move on from Violet, I would say I liked her, but I wonder if it's because I had a slightly dishonest reading of this book because I skipped over almost all of her internal monologue particularly surrounding Xaden, because it was so unbearable with her like, holy fucking hot, or like,
Yeah.
what a dick. It's like, just trust that he's hot. Like, I think the three of us like gushing about what an honorable and nice person he is, none of that comes from being told that he's like ripplingly huge.
He's got a
he's
scar
just, like,
over his left eyebrow.
That is hot though.
Touche. But like, he was hot through his actions, and he was hot through the tension that developed through the plot. I don't need to be told in like a 1 paragraph long internal monologue that's like as though it was written by a 15-year-old what a hot, sexy guy he is. And so I did find myself skipping a lot of those. It really pulled me out of the story, especially given her sort of reasonably level-headed, logical way of thinking about other things. Maybe she was trying to show, the author was trying to show the way that being around Xaden makes her lose control. God knows she repeated enough like, oh my God, I'm never normally like this, but around him, things are different. We could have picked that up throughout the course of the book anyway.
Yeah, like your reader isn't stupid. They can figure that shit out.
That was a huge problem I had with the book, I think. The main detractor for me was the writing. It's written in a style that I've complained about before on the show, but that kind of style, kind of like we saw in Before the Coffee Gets Cold, that doesn't really have a lot of faith in its reader, and it will say, we were fucked. Dragons didn't want to be friends with people because dragons hate people. It's like, well, it was implied in the first thing you said. Like,
yeah, we get it.
Stop telling me.
Yeah, this book is almost 500 pages long. We get it.
Yeah.
We don't need to keep hearing it.
We're all aware of the stories that you've taken things from. Like, we know dragons. We understand that they're not like people or animals or creatures to be reckoned with. Like, they're dragons. We like even Shrek. The dragon does what the dragon wants to do. The dragon wants to have the donkey babies. It's fine. Ooh.
Yeah, I think the only time you would need to be told is if you're deviating from the commonly accepted lore around the dragons, which we're not, except if the dragons are evil.
Yes. Or if the griffin is donkey. I'm a donkey on the edge.
Shrek, I'm looking down. Does anyone have anything else they would like to say about Dane?
Dane is basically Gale from the Hunger Games. I suspected he was bad this whole time. I don't think he was coming from a bad place in telling her to leave. It was coming from a selfish place. It was not so much about Violet as it was about him. But I think that's because he is in a difficult position, which I suspect we'll find out more in the next book. But I think he knew she was going to be used as a pawn, and he didn't want to have to put her in that situation or have to like watch her or betray her like that.
That's a kind way to put it.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I was thinking I hate him, and he's just selfish. Like, he wasn't even worried about her. He was just thinking,
what a square. What a little boot licking
Oh my
bitch.
God.
Yeah.
When Xaden asked Dane if he would break the rules for her, and he was like, no.
That was incredible.
It was a great scene. Xaden is such a bad bitch. Like, I completely get the appeal. I get the appeal for Xaden more than I think I got it for Rhys, which I think we got it quite well for him, but I think Xaden is better than Rhys, which is a debate I've seen online. The girlies like Xaden. But when he put Dane in his place but made Dane admit it himself, incredible. What a
He
power
didn't even
move.
really have to do anything.
No.
Dane dug his own grave.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
All the times that he commented on how he didn't want to have to see Violet struggle made it clear to me that he knows what is in store for Violet and he's trying to get her out of it.
That's so interesting. Yeah.
That's so crazy. You were finishing this book not like 2 hours ago and you have such a deeper read of it than I do. I didn't pick up on that at all. But
I was just like, Dane sucks.
Yeah.
Well, because his dad's the commander.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
That's so
think
true.
He has been raised to fill his dad's shoes. He's got a deeper sense of responsibility in a very different way to Xaden. And I think he is privy to the government plans and knows that she is the pawn he needs, especially as she gets closer to Xaden. And he doesn't want her to be in the middle, but she makes her choice and he acknowledges that as well. Like, you made your choice. And this is what I have to do. You're doing what you have to do. And it sucks for everyone.
I think it's funny as well. As soon as the first mention for the rebellion, I was like, I'm on their side.
Yeah.
I don't even know what they did. I don't know what their problems were. I am for them. Funny.
Any government that forces you to sign up and risk your life to ride a dragon.
And like her mum was a horrible witch from the start.
Yeah.
I like that.
So I really liked that. I liked her character and I liked her role in the story. But like anything that she's rooting for is obviously not going to be a good thing.
That's right.
At some points I was like, well, she knows that she actually does have the mental fortitude or the goal to succeed and she's proud of her in her own way. But she couldn't care less at any point about her.
Wasn't that so great though? Like in the start where she says to Violet, from now on, you're not my daughter, you're Cadet Soaring Gale. And then when Violet slips, because obviously Violet's still got a bit of a soft spot for her mum, and she sees her in the field or whatever and says, Mum. And she's immediately like, Cadet Soaring Gale. So sad. But I do agree that the mum is currently on the wrong side. I'm curious by her possessing the dagger that you need to kill the venom.
Wasn't there also one of those little tidbits at the start of a chapter that was a letter from her correspondence basically saying she did not support the kids of the rebellion. Yeah. She was like, they should not have to watch their parents die. And so I was like, oh, cool, she'll be on their side soon. But no such thing.
Not yet. Yeah, I predict redemption arc there as well. She won't know that the brother is alive, but I think she'll come good in the end. Because I do wonder, I think General Soaring Gale is a very controlled person. So I thought it was very interesting that she left the exact weapon needed to kill these things where she knew Violet would see it. She knows who Violet is. And she underestimates her, sure, but she knows she's smart. If she was truly hiding that stuff from her, I don't think it would have been where she could see it. So I wonder if maybe that was a sneaky way of giving Violet a hint.
Another
when she can't
hot
say
take.
anything.
Very good.
Thanks, Laura.
10 out of 10.
No homework for you tonight.
One more thing I have to say about Dane is that with his power of seeing your recent memories, I was fully expecting them to enter into a love triangle. Violet and Dane would be together and then Xaden would start to catch her eye and they'd have a steamy little moment and he'd be like, what the fuck is this? Why were you with him? I don't think I missed a love triangle in this story.
I think she got sick of him pretty fast.
I did have a note, like when she does blow up at him and she's telling him, the only person that doesn't believe in me is you. My note basically says, where did this come from? Because there were a few points, I mean, I guess when he was telling her you have to run, like this, it's not too late to get out, every time she was saying, cut it out, just like listen to me, it's fine. But there was no internal monologue for her about maybe he doesn't have my best interests at heart. I'm sick of him not believing in me. It just popped out at that moment.
I've also thought that was so stupid though, because as if she escaped, as if her mother would not just drag her right back.
I know.
She would not take that.
Yes.
Stupid little boy.
So dumb. And Dane should have known that, really.
Well, that's what makes me think it was like desperation from him,
yeah.
his side. He wants her out of there.
And
so
desperation is a good word because he did not come off as cool or level-headed. Like he was always blowing his cover or dragging her off to yell at her in front of everybody. Like he's in a leadership position.
I know.
And he's just acting like a little freak.
Yeah. And I also didn't miss the love triangle, and I loved that when Dane kissed Violet, he was so chuffed with himself, and she was like, bro, I feel nothing.
Yeah, that was great.
I kind of hoped, though, that that's when he would have read her memories and, like, seen her staring lovingly at Xaden and then just, like, had a cry.
This is what I was going to say was I was thinking that he was reading her mind a little bit, but I was sort of also at the same time thinking he wasn't, because he had touched her face so many times and hadn't yet figured out that she was obsessed with Xaden, and only realized like towards, you know, like the later half of the book when he noticed a look between the two of them. And I thought, oh, you must be like either really stupid or you're not reading her mind at all, or when you are, you're just looking for signs of rebellion. You're not looking for betrayal from her side. Like I think he believed that she wouldn't betray him. I think he was just so focused on Xaden and Xaden's behavior, he didn't even think maybe to notice, oh, hang on, she's obsessed with him. Every memory of him is tinged with rose-colored edges or whatever. You know, then I thought maybe he wasn't doing it.
That's why I didn't think he was doing it as well, because like you said, he's so obvious. Like he's blundering around, revealing himself left, right and centre. So I thought if he had been reading her memories and seeing these things, he would have immediately told her or confronted her. I did like most of the side characters, although I was pretty confused about who was who, and
there were a lot of them.
There were so many, and not to be like too self-referential, but it was different to Icebreaker. Although I did have some character fatigue, I felt like it made a lot of sense for there to be that many characters. Yeah. And at least my confusion about who was who kind of mirrored Violet's confusion about like, oh, some random first year died. I think I saw him at dinner the other night. And I eventually started to get a grip on it. I really liked Liam. And I'm so happy he died, even though I'm so sad, because it's something that we complained about with Akatar. Someone should have died. And so I do really respect this book for doing the hard thing of building you up to this beautiful, sweet man.
The sculptures of the dragon.
He just wants to whittle.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And then splattering him on the rocks.
Yeah, that was very sad.
It was such a sad ending for Liam.
It was really heartbreaking.
Before we get too far away from what you said, I agree there were a lot of characters, but I would give the author credit because I do think she did a good job of only kind of introducing people when you needed to know them. And then they were kind of gone again or mentioned in passing. They served a purpose and then they were gone, and then served a purpose and they were gone again. Like, I wondered why the character in the archives needed to be introduced. But a prime example of someone who was introduced, served their purpose, and then left again. Like, we didn't need to know anything else about them. And they'll probably feature in the next book somewhere, but...
Not dating Liam, though.
Oh, don't! That's so sad.
Before we move on to talking about the dragons, I do want to say that this author, bless her, has clearly never gone to primary school in Australia in the 90s to 2000s and had the trauma of the naughty Aiden names.
Yeah.
Because
it's so true.
Xaden, worst of the worst. I've never met a Xaden, but
especially with a Y. There's no Y in this one, but if it was in Toowoomba, it would have a Y.
People with Y's in their name can't be trusted.
Z-A-Y.
Braden, Aiden,
Hayden. Hayden's aren't too bad, I guess.
Hayden.
I knew of a Bladen once.
Yeah. Even just a Blade. Zane.
Xander.
Xander.
That's a little ankle biting name. That's a little, he's got like a white blonde rat's tail.
He's
out
running
to
to
nip your
Nicole's with no shoes on in his pajamas at 6 o'clock on a Monday night.
Yuck.
Xaden, get back here. What'd you just put in the trolley?
Also, Jack.
Yep.
Yeah.
Naughty boy.
Dane.
Oren, get back here now.
And also Dane's dragon, Kath. I was like, Kath is not a dragon. Like, Kath wears pedal pushers and gets a skinny mugachino. Like, oh, hello, love.
Even Dane. Dano.
Dano.
Oh my God.
And while we're on the topic, I do have a note here. Page 188, the first time the name violence is used, makes me want to shrivel up so deep inside myself and die.
Oh, it was... I don't think it would have been so bad if it was only used like once or twice. The frequency at which it was used was so painful. And then when they're like hooking up or whatever, and she's like, he only calls me Violet when we're by ourselves. Shut up.
He should probably call you that all the time.
But I also think most of these books do this thing with their dialogue where people use names more often than you do in real life. And the last name usage, bleh, yuck, I hate it. Why do we do that?
Because they're in the military.
It's so losery.
Macca.
I hate it.
I liked that her name was Violet just so we could get the scene where they... Oh, no, I don't think you're thinking what I'm thinking. When there was a threat to her and they put the crushed violets on her pillow.
Yeah.
That was great.
And then the next step after that, when Xaden leaves her some fresh violets beside her bed, like I liked even just like the self-referential nature of that.
Yeah.
I thought it was really nice. I would like to talk about Violet's first dragon because I think he is a funny little bitch. I found it really interesting because Laura and I listened to the audiobook for a little bit on the way over here to do pod recording, and the voice they used for Violet's dragon was quite different to how I imagined it, because in the audiobook it's really like gruff and serious, but
That's how I imagined it.
I just thought he was such a like light-hearted character. And like when she first gets on him and he's like, you have to strengthen your legs. Didn't you practice? There's no need to shout. I can hear you just fine. The entire mountain can hear you. I can barely feel you back there. And then she's like, I didn't think I'd make it this far. And he's like, I didn't think I would either. So we have that in common. Like, I just thought he was making all these like sarcastic quips that it was hard to imagine him being like, well, I didn't think I would either. Like, it's just such a different tone to how I saw him.
When I realized the dragons could talk, I lost my mind.
It was
I was like,
so
oh,
good.
thank you. So much more exciting than what I was imagining.
And I loved when the golden dragon showed up. I was like, oh my God, beautiful. And then like, oh, it's so small. Like, I felt really sad for it when they were talking shit in front of her. I was like, it's so mean. He's just a little dragon.
Little baby girl.
And then they were talking about how small and weak it was. And I was like, fuck, that's going to be a dragon. That's going to be really annoying. So I was really happy when she got the big daddy dragon who was just fucking shit up. And then she got two dragons.
I thought that was a good plot twist.
Yes.
When they were in class and
Yes.
the guy was like, the rarest is the black dragons.
Who
No
never
one's even
comes out
seen
of the
one.
mountain.
I was like, oh, here we fucking go. She's going to get the black dragon, of course.
Yeah. I wrote down something like, she's going to get the black dragon and the black dragon is going to be Brennan's old dragon.
Yeah, I thought the same thing.
She's going to have the dragon of the relative and so does Xaden and they're going to become the children of the revolution.
I thought the same. And then when the golden dragon was introduced, I was like, forget everything you know.
Yeah,
She's not
me
going to get the
too.
black dragon. She's going to get the golden dragon.
I flipped back in
Yeah.
disbelief. I was like, wait, did I read this wrong?
The golden dragon made me cry so many times.
Oh,
I
it was
pictured
cute.
the big daddy dragon. I pictured him as Liam Neeson as Aslan in Narnia. I don't know
Okay.
if either of
Yeah,
you know
no,
that
respect.
reference.
Okay.
But then the golden dragon, I pictured her kind of as like a dreamy little voice.
Yeah, same. And like the
Sean.
Neopets dragon character. Like, just a little baby.
I pictured Dragonite. And I thought it was so cute.
Pokemon?
It was. Yeah, this one.
Cutie. That's kind of how I pictured it too.
Yeah. It was
When
a
she
cute
makes her
dragon.
roll in the mud.
Oh, that was good.
And she gives so much of herself to help Violet's powers.
Maybe it was just the voice I created for the golden dragon. I found it kind of like whiny and annoying, but it was just a small little dragon and it couldn't help it.
I thought it was a bit whiny and annoying, but
Okay.
I think it was because Violet was treating her
Yes.
like everyone else treated Violet.
Yes, that's what I was waiting for the moment when the daddy dragon was like, because I can't say their names.
Tan. I don't know.
Tan France.
Do we pronounce it like cans?
Should have listened to the audiobook more.
I was waiting
Tarn.
for him to say to Violet, like, you know all that shit you're whinging about? You're doing the exact same thing. But he was also doing it to the gold dragon.
I thought that was a missed opportunity for some correlation between the
Yeah.
two. That was already there.
And I'm both excited by and slightly disappointed by in the end when Xaden says the golden dragon's huge now. I'm like, damn it.
Yeah, what?
I
and
want-
also that she's lost her time-stopping power.
Yeah.
That was handy. Maybe she'll get something even cooler though.
Yeah,
We
I'm
don't
curious.
know.
Could she still have both dragons now that it's bigger? Could she only have both because it was a baby dragon? Does that mean she gets two wielded powers from both dragons?
I think Brian and I went to the Great Yorkshire Show in 2014, and there was this guy there that was the main attraction. What his thing was he rode on horses standing up, and he had
Oh
like
my
one
God.
leg on each one.
Oh my God.
And so that's what I want her to do. Now that they're big, I want her to have one leg on each with the reins and
Oh
just
my
riding
God.
around.
Great epic spectacular style.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
Man from Snowy River. Exactly what I want.
I, for one, would like to see it. I also really liked Xaden's dragon, and I liked the relationship between the dragons. But I don't know that I liked that Xaden and Violet could speak to the other's dragon just because they were mated.
I didn't really care about that, but I really didn't like that when the dragons were getting it on.
I forgot about the fucking.
I really hated that.
I forgot about it.
That felt wrong.
And when he's like smoking weeds, he doesn't get turned on. Okay, Xaden.
You know, like when you're playing like Grand Theft Auto or something and you get attacked and you're nearly ready to die and around the edges of the screen is like red? That's what I was imagining her vision was like when she was like stumbling through the castle trying to get away from Liam.
Doped up on secondhand dragon horniness.
It was so funny.
Oh God, it was just crazy. But like, what made her think to do that? What made the author go, you know what this book needs? Dragons fucking.
I don't understand that as well because they could have had that same sexual tension like it was there anyway, even without the dragons doubling down on their own horniness.
Yeah, and like forcing them together.
I think if you say the dragons are bonded, they're mates, we know what that means.
Yeah, we get
Yes.
it.
We don't need
Dragons be
that.
fucking. Like,
We don't need to know anything else about that.
Although it did give what we needed to have the consent conversation.
Oh, yes.
As every book needs now.
Yes.
So funny.
Xaden, king feminist, basically said, we're not fucking just because the dragons be fucking. And you know what? That's something we should all live by.
And hand in hand with that, later on, we had the contraception
Oh.
conversation.
And even just the like, we were both on birth control. Shut up. Of course, in this shit government, the men are on birth control as well.
Yeah.
Of course. Like,
What was it, like a tincture or something?
Birth suppressant herbs. or
That's
something
birth
right.
like that.
suppressant.
It could have been brought up at another time as well because she had kitchen duty and she could have just put in a throwaway line about I put the bread and the
Next
contraception
to-
herbs
Yeah.
on the plate.
Yeah, well, like, wouldn't you think that they all are eating it as part of the meals, right? Not everyone is responsible for taking it themselves. So, yeah, it
That's
should have come up while working in the kitchen, because if they're so afraid of so much breeding, because they're all fucking like rabbits because they think they're going to die.
I did think that was going to be a bigger part of the story, because pretty much immediately they're letting you know riders are really horny. They have sex any chance they can get with anyone they can get, because they don't know if they're going to live to see another day. And so I was like, oh, this is going to be just like, I was picturing her having like 6 different potential bays. So actually that pleasantly surprised me, because I feel like for me, when I am reading a book that's marketed as enemies to lovers and there's meant to be this quote unquote sizzling tension and you're building up to some payoff where they finally get together, I don't want that moment lessened or detracted from by her being able to get the same thing elsewhere.
4 more books. In which book is Violet going to be pregnant? I reckon book number 4.
When will she stop taking the herbs?
I think what will happen is they will get stranded somewhere. You know, her and Xaden are lost after a battle, and then they're there, so they don't have access to the herbs, and then they'll get pregnant. And that's the end of that.
But, okay, 2 thoughts here. You're in this government where there's magic and shit. People can cast wards on you or whatever. The rebellion relics on them mean that guy that can see everything can't see them.
That was a great plot
love
twist.
it. Oh, it's so good.
I liked that one.
But you're telling me you can't just, like, put a tattoo on everyone that makes them infertile? Like, cast a ward that they can't have kids until they're 30 or something? I have one last thought on the dragons. Did anyone catch the reference that the past rider of the daddy dragon, like, openly wept and mourned the death of her brother? So I'm curious how that's going to play out. Why was he so bereft anyway?
That was given some airtime.
So are you thinking that they had to kill him to cover up Brennan being alive? Or are you just thinking that they're gay?
Well, I'm always thinking they're gay. That's always the first thought in my mind. But I wonder if they killed him to try and find out where Brennan was, because he wouldn't reveal it.
Interesting.
I think maybe he hid Brennan away.
That's
so I'm actually suspecting it might be both. But I'm curious to see where that goes, and I'll be disappointed if it goes nowhere.
Actually, thanks so much, Erin, because you picked up on all of these things that I didn't notice or didn't think about. And I was excited to read the next book anyway, but now I'm really excited. So this is yet another book that we've read that's marketed as enemies to lovers. And we've had problems with this genre before where we find that it's barely even rivals to lovers. It's strangers to lovers. Personally, I would say, although I still lean towards wanting a little more yearning and a little more drawn
active hatred.
Yes. I would say this was better, but it didn't do enough with the source material. Like, they literally killed each other's families.
Yeah. Your prophecy from last episode
I know.
became real.
And I just think there's so much more they could have done with that and still ended up in the same place. Like, I like where they ended up, but I just wish that it had taken longer with much more angst to get there.
When you said they literally killed each other's families, his dad didn't kill Brennan. His dad saved Brennan. Because Brennan's living in the city. I hadn't really put that together until you just said they killed each other's families.
I never would have put that together if you hadn't said it.
Yeah.
No, neither.
But did you agree that the enemies to lovers wasn't giving us everything it could have?
Yeah.
I do. I did like it. One of my fave quotes from it is they're just kind of bantering, and she says, "You'd rather I die, no doubt." And he says, "And be denied the pleasure of your company?" She says, "I fucking hate you." And he says, "That doesn't make you special." Like,
yes, I like that line
that's
too.
good banter. But yes, agree. There should have been a bit more snarking. I did like when they were like practicing fighting and stuff, and it was like sexually charged. I thought that was good. The little comments here and there about like masochism, watching each other and stuff like that. There was tension there for sure. But yeah, I wanted more snark.
I really liked the magic elements of this story as well. I really liked when that guy lost his mind because he could hear everyone's thoughts. I thought that was like a very eerie scene. And I liked the concept of how if they didn't manifest their signet, they would just lose their minds and the magic would consume them. I really enjoyed the concept of the venom as well. And I thought that scene where they were like sucking the magic out of the earth was pretty
cool.
tough.
And it was sad when the rider died and then the dragon died.
One of my favorite, cutest parts was when Violet was at the front of the class and Xaden was at the back and he was seemingly in a conversation with somebody else, but she dropped her quill and the shadows picked it up
That was
for
very
her.
cute.
And he wasn't even looking at her, but it was so cute. I liked that a lot. That was right at the start of their little dalliance.
Flirt. I will say that felt very Feyre and Rhys.
Yes.
And as did the speaking in the mines to each other.
It
And
didn't make me want to throw up as much as Feyre and
Same.
Rhys.
No. Although I will say the love bombing at the end of this book was a bit much. When Violet started being like, oh, I love him. I've always loved him.
One thing I liked about that, though, and maybe I just missed it, but I'm pretty sure he never says I love you back to her. And she's fine with that. And I really like that because I think in another book, it would absolutely consume the female protagonist to say I love you and not hear it back. And I like that she's so sure of herself. She's like, cards on the table. I am going to fall for you. He has no right to tell me how to feel.
And she's sure of him at the same time. She knows that he'll get there at some point.
I think what I struggle with is when he says, I've loved you since I saw you on the parapet. And it's like, well, now it's not enemies to lovers anymore.
But
Again.
I do get that because he's probably spent his whole life thinking the past 5 years or however long it's been since his father was executed, like, oh, all Sorrengails are evil. They do this and do this. But then the first time he meets her, he swaps one of her boots to save someone she's just met. That was so kind, I thought.
I Googled something because I want to have a chat about it. And Google is telling me that Violet has a degenerative condition affecting connective tissues.
Ella's Danos or
Yeah.
whatever it's
There you
called.
go.
Yeah, which kind of connects into the point that I want to make. I think in some ways I like the way the author just kind of sprinkled in a bunch of diversity in this and made like not a big deal about it. Like you had a non-binary character, hard of hearing character. You had bisexual characters. I assume Rhiannon is bisexual. But what is, I think, perhaps less clear is firstly the like disability representation without an actual name for what's troubling Violet. But also there's been a lot of talk about whether Xaden is a person of color or not, to the point that people do fan art of him where he is white/tanned, and the author came out and said, no, Xaden is a person of color. But it's not that clear in the book.
No, I would agree that's not clear.
No. And it may just be because I had already seen some of this before I read the book, but I always read Xaden as like an Asian, like with tan skin character. So that's how I viewed him.
Yeah.
But yeah, interesting that she tries to be inclusive and have diversity. And I like that it's natural and not hugely focused on, but it's almost to the detriment at some point, to the point where people didn't even know. Like, did you guys know? You didn't?
No. I was imagining him like a real like Irish kind of guy, like pale, dark hair, dark eyes, like that sort of vibe.
Same. I do remember reading he had like dark skin or tan skin or brown skin even, maybe is what she said. But I was fully reading it as a like tall, dark and handsome. Oh no, white, like but brooding.
White, dark and handsome.
Yeah, I think at one point it said something about how his dragon magic tattoo wrapped around his neck, and I was like, oh, ooh, neck tattoo and called Xaden? Like, no, thank you.
Ipswich calling.
Yeah.
So Xaden is explicitly described as having dark skin, but so many fan artists portray him as having white skin.
All the fan art I've seen, he literally looks exactly the same as the fan art of Rhys.
Yeah.
So the author has confirmed that Xaden is definitely dark-skinned, and she also exclusively only shares fan art of Xaden with dark skin.
Hopefully she makes that more clear in the following books.
So apparently the reason may be because she has a mixed-race daughter. So she has apparently been a proponent for diverse books and has engaged in the hashtag we need diverse books. And she said, because I need my mixed race daughter to see she's not a secondary character.
It could just be me glossing over it, but I don't remember any conversations as well about Violet's like alabaster skin or that kind of thing. I think a lot of them are vague, whether intentional or so, I don't know. But I think with that vagueness, my imagination just sort of conjures up like a pretty diverse cast of characters.
Who do you think your favourite character is?
I think I like Daddy Dragon the best. I think he's so funny.
Mine's Liam. I love Liam. Rest in
Oh, R.I.P.
the
Liam.
peacest of peace,
Oh.
Liam.
I think I'm going to be a basic bitch and say Xaden.
Zayden's a good
Fair.
one.
I hope he continues to be a strong character.
What about least favourite character?
Oh, probably Jack, little bitch-ass punk.
Bitch boy.
Yeah, it
Hate
feels like
Jack.
low-hanging fruit, but I'd probably say Jack as well.
Yeah.
Or Oren, little bitch.
Not even
Yeah.
interesting enough to be a Jack.
I guess so. I don't know that there were any that when they showed up I was like, ugh, fuck this bitch. No Alice vibes from any of them.
Although I didn't understand his motives, Jack still served a purpose and I liked his role in the story. He was just a pure antagonist. So
Yeah.
on that basis, I hate him.
And he was like a bad bitch when he got on the parapet and just fucking pushed that guy off for no reason.
That's
Like,
right.
really set the
Flawless.
tone for his character. But the most important decision of all, little shit.
I'm going to go with Lit.
Yeah, this morning I was leaning towards shit,
Ooh.
but I've changed my mind. Lit.
Yeah, I think it's lit too. I think it was a bit long, but ultimately lit. And I genuinely look forward to seeing where it goes. But if the book is this long, I'm going to
It'll be longer.
Do I have 5 books in me? No.
Probably not. It's really hinging on this second book.
That's the show for now. Subscribe to the show to be notified when the next episode drops. And remember, raw means we love you in dragon. In the meantime, if you want to be on the same page as us and find out what we're reading next, follow us at talklit.gethip on Instagram and TikTok.